What would happen if tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran escalated into open war? There is currently no officially declared full-scale war between these nations. However, geopolitical tensions, proxy conflicts, and strategic rivalry have defined their relationship for decades. So the real question is not whether war has begun. The real question is this: if the United States were to become directly involved in an Israel-Iran conflict, what strategic benefits might Washington seek? This is not a prediction. This is not a conspiracy. This is a geopolitical analysis based on historical patterns and national interests. To understand possible benefits, we must first understand how global power operates. Nations do not enter wars randomly. They act based on security calculations, economic interests, alliance commitments, and long-term strategic positioning. Let's begin with military positioning. The Middle East remains one of the most strategically important regions in the world. It connects Europe, Asia, and Africa. It contains critical energy infrastructure, and it controls key maritime choke points. One of the most important choke points is the Strait of Hormuz. A large percentage of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow waterway. If conflict threatens this region, global energy markets react immediately. For the United States, securing shipping lanes and maintaining freedom of navigation has always been a strategic priority. Direct involvement in a regional war could allow America to expand its military footprint, reinforce naval patrols, and strengthen deterrence capabilities. From a purely strategic lens, maintaining control over critical trade routes ensures leverage in global commerce. Now let's look at energy markets. Iran is one of the largest oil-producing countries in the world. Any military escalation involving Iran could reduce supply and increase oil prices. Historically, higher oil prices have multiple global effects. They increase revenues for oil-exporting nations. They affect inflation worldwide. They shift global economic balances. For the United States, which has become a major energy producer due to shale oil production, higher prices can benefit domestic energy companies. It can also increase American influence in global energy negotiations, particularly with European and Asian allies seeking stable supply chains. Energy has always been intertwined with foreign policy. Now consider alliances. The United States has a long-standing strategic partnership with Israel. Support during conflict reinforces credibility among allies. In geopolitics, credibility is currency. If allies believe America will stand by them during crises, they are more likely to cooperate in intelligence sharing, defense agreements, and trade partnerships. Direct involvement in a regional conflict could send a signal not just to Iran, but to other global powers. It signals commitment. It signals capability. It signals readiness. This brings us to global power competition. The international system is increasingly shaped by competition between the United States, China, and Russia. Any major regional conflict becomes part of this larger strategic equation. If America increases its military presence in the Middle East, it limits the strategic space available to rival powers. It reassures Gulf partners. It pressures adversaries. It shapes diplomatic negotiations beyond the battlefield. However, military positioning is only one dimension. Another factor is the defense industry. The United States has one of the largest defense sectors in the world. Military conflicts typically lead to increased demand for advanced weapon systems, missile defense platforms, drones, cybersecurity infrastructure, and intelligence systems. Increased defense spending can stimulate specific sectors of the American economy. However, this is also politically sensitive. War is not simply an economic engine. It carries ethical costs, financial burdens, and long-term consequences. Now let's examine deterrence theory. Sometimes, involvement in conflict is less about fighting and more about preventing future aggression. If the United States demonstrates overwhelming capability during a regional crisis, it may discourage future adversaries from challenging its interests. In international relations theory, this is known as power projection. Visible power changes behavior. But there is another dimension: domestic politics. American foreign policy decisions are influenced by internal political considerations. Public opinion. Congressional approval. Election cycles. Economic stability. Any administration considering military involvement must calculate how it affects voters at home. Now we must address the risks. Because every potential benefit carries serious consequences. Military escalation could expand beyond the initial region. Oil prices could spike uncontrollably. Global markets could panic. American troops could face prolonged engagement. Iran also has regional influence through allied groups across the Middle East. This means conflict would likely not remain geographically limited. There is also the risk of cyber warfare. Modern conflict is no longer only physical. It includes digital infrastructure attacks, financial system disruptions, and satellite interference. Another risk is diplomatic isolation. If international partners do not support military involvement, it can strain alliances instead of strengthening them. So the reality is complex. Potential strategic benefits may include expanded military influence, energy market leverage, alliance reinforcement, defense sector growth. Global power signaling. But potential costs include economic instability, regional escalation, human casualties, long-term geopolitical backlash. In geopolitics, decisions are rarely black and white. They are calculations. Strategic interest versus strategic risk. Understanding these calculations allows us to see beyond headlines. If the United States were ever to enter an Israel-Iran war, it would likely be driven by national interest assessments rather than emotional reactions. Foreign policy is not about drama. It is about leverage. It is about positioning. It is about maintaining influence in an evolving global order. The Middle East remains a central arena in that order, and any escalation involving major powers would reshape the balance of global power. The question is not simply who wins a battle. The question is who reshapes the system.